felt this like nausea in my gut and this hollowness of like, is it really about like my own comforts and conveniences? And I just felt like, this isn't it. This is not it. She was like, I just feel I have to ask you this because I can feel scared to ask you. And that's the cue to ask. So it was like, okay, I love that you shared it. And then obviously the second thing that came up was like, fuck. I had it described perfectly as speaking for the feeling, not from the feeling.
I've really noticed my life change as soon as I really chose to take responsibility. There's this part of like, can I just reflect and look back at myself? Was this the most loving way I could have expressed this?
We want to feel like, yeah, I would, sacrifice sleep. I would sacrifice the comforts of a nice routine or a warm bed because I'm living into something that really fucking matters. One of my biggest lessons in this like journey of 7 years has been
Welcome to the Spirit Unfolding podcast, where we explore the depth of the human experience, the creative energy that runs through us all, and what we can do to create a more beautiful world. My name is Lars, and every episode I sit down with a creative, pioneer or teacher in the fields of spirituality, art, health, and the natural world. We want to give you actionable insights to spiritual growth, taking ownership of your life and expanding your perspective on life's possibilities. Also, you can live a more authentic, loving, and fulfilling life. I am honored that you chose to spend your valuable time listening to the Spirit Unfolding podcast. And you would really help us by subscribing to YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, and sharing the episode with your family and friends and on social media. Thank you so much. My guest today is Arun Thompson. He's a men's coach, therapist, and facilitator that I've had the pleasure of sharing a space with a couple of times. And every time I'm touched by his passion, wisdom, and his talent for touching people's heart with his words. We dived into the stigma that men experience around feeling feelings, what it can do to live and lead from the heart, and how being present in your body can be a game changer. Arun also shared practical tips and best practices on coming back to yourself and living a life of truth that he's cultivated through years of doing the work himself and leading many other men into creating a more authentic life. And last but not least, we went deep into the topic of relationships and intimacy, with Arun sharing some beautiful stories of bravery and connection that still give me goosebumps. I hope you will enjoy this episode as much as I did. So let's dive in.
Thanks for being here. Thank you so much for having me. And it's just been so nice to have these couple of encounters already. And then already the conversation is very alive and exciting. And with a lot of resonance on like a couple of topics that I'm sure we'll dive into today.
Yeah, for sure. I just kind of want to start to frame it for people that don't know you yet. Could you describe what it is that you're doing and maybe also how your journey's been to get there?
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe what I do is I am somewhat of a Sherpa to help men find their way back to themselves and the wisdom of their body and their emotions. A kind of broader context in society, I feel like so much of the time we're told what to be, what to do, what kind of a man to be especially, and we have all these ideas of what it is, and ultimately we're, I think, all seeking a sense of aliveness and authenticity and living life for ourselves. And that's what I really hope to help guys to do, which is find their way back to themselves, and so that they can live with joy and with connection, with authenticity and with love, and look back on their life at the end and think, that was fucking fun. That was really worth doing.
Yeah.
The story is like really, I think, born from my childhood. My parents are very loving and generous and sociable people. And I remember my dad would ask me what I thought about certain social situations that we'd find ourselves in. So I remember one time being in the car with my dad and him asking me, what did you think about what your friend said back there? And then it like clued me into, okay, this is something to think about and reflect upon. And actually, I didn't really like what he said. And my dad said, neither did he. It was my friend at that time, we must have been like 12, made a homophobic comment. And my dad was already tuning me in then to the ways in which people act and what that means and what I felt in my body, and really training me to be attentive to other people and to humans. So that's, I think, a lot of the times as children we want to connect to our parents, and that was my way to find intimacy with my dad, was to talk about people and our judgments and what we felt. My mum also did psychology at university, and then I just found myself most interested by that kind of field of human behavior, psychology, and really understanding why people do the things they do and why they don't do the things they don't do. And so, yeah, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I just knew I was fascinated by it. And then so university and did a range of different areas of psychology, but found my biggest interest in work psychology. So I became fascinated by leadership and by how managers can manage people well. And for me, it felt really bizarre that we have our life and then we have this workspace where it's a kind of different set of rules, and we don't talk about certain things, and certain things aren't allowed. And so I felt
You're being a different version of yourself in a sense. Most people are. Massively.
And just like most people would come back from work and be like, yeah, I don't like work, or, it's like work's kind of shit. I felt like we kind of came to accept, our parents even, it's just the way things are.
Yeah.
So I wanted to change the way that we did work. Long story short, I basically got an amazing internship, got fired from it, and then did a 8-month trip in South America with some friends. There I got introduced to a retreat center through a friend of mine, and did 6 weeks volunteering, and then ended up flying back home for a month to earn enough money to fly back to Brazil, where it was. And then I did 2.5 years there. And that was when I really got into the self-development world and started to build more ideas about what lights people up, what feels meaningful in life, and how to facilitate experiences that bring people back to that.
Yeah. I really always feel that when you're like, you have, I sense and I know that you have this massive call to create community. And you're really big on like creating meaningful relationships and where everything is shared, not just the highs or like certain parts of yourself. I'm curious, when you went to Brazil, like 2.5 years, was there a particular type of like retreat center? Like were they using, a specific angle or like?
It was interesting because the story of the retreat center was, it was 2 Israeli guys who had gone traveling together. And during that time, they'd gone around Brazil and around the world, and then they wanted to kind of ground somewhere. And then they kind of had this feeling of like, what do we do now? And they started philosophizing and talking about life. And then they thought like, there doesn't really exist these kind of places to figure out and explore what an optimal way of life looks like. So they had no kind of real training or experience in what they were doing. They just decided we want to create a place where we can explore that. So it was really like a mix mash of just figuring it out. And we would every morning host 20-minute, we called it Sunrise, which was a morning energizer, kind of like a TED Talk, where we'd bring a certain topic. We might have read a book, we might have done a workshop, and we'd then bring it to the people that were there working and staying in the hostel retreat center. And it was just an exploration. So it was really like a human laboratory of like, okay, who's got something that they want to share or do, which was why it was so fruitful for me to be able to iterate without the pressure, to just explore what do I love and what's lighting me up, and then share that with the world.
Beautiful. What a gift.
Yeah, really unique. Yeah.
And then what made you decide to go back and eventually end up in Portugal, Lisbon, where you're now?
Yeah. So Brazil was amazing. It was like a real kind of foundation of life, and living in a community and being a part of that retreat center taught me a lot about life and relationships and these kind of dynamics, and also the work that I wanted to be doing. And then my COVID story is that COVID hit, and I was going for a meal with a friend, and then we were going to the next town to get dinner. And the bus driver said to us, like, where are you boys going? We said, we're going to go get dinner in the next town. And he's like, haven't you heard? And we're like, heard what? And he's like, everything's closed. And until that point, we didn't know anything about COVID, because we were just living our life. We were surfing. Literally, you could get into the river from where we lived and then just go straight into the surf.
Wow.
So we'd been totally disconnected from this pandemic that was apparently happening. So we're like, okay, fuck, this seems pretty serious. So then we came back to the like local burger joint, and we could just see on this like TV screen that they have there, and these plastic chairs, drinking a beer, and it was like, you know, the world is closing down, and it's this crisis that we've never seen before. So we're like, okay, we better assess our options here. And so, do we just hunker down in Brazil, or do we go home? And then it was quickly like, if this goes really wrong and we are trapped in Brazil and our parents or our family are sick and ill, then we'll just never forgive ourselves. So we decided, okay, let's get on the next flight and get home. So flew home, was there for a year, but as soon as I touched down in England, I was thinking, do I want to be here? Is this really it? Is this where I feel like I'm going to thrive? And I know that you're also like traveling and exploring, and you get that sense of like, yeah, is this where I want to be? And I decided no. So having lived in Brazil, I spoke Portuguese and decided it's got sun, sea, and community, so I'll go there.
Oh yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And so how, you know, there's also a story of entrepreneurship, because right now you're leading men, you're helping men. How did that come about, and when did you figure out what for you the more important pillars were to base your work on?
In entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and like, so what you're doing now, like you're coaching men, you're helping them. I suppose before it was like they were coming to the retreat center, and it was more like sort of under the flag of the retreat center.
Yeah.
Now you're doing this fully by yourself. What was, how did that crystallize? Like, to know what it is exactly that you want to focus on?
Yeah, great question. It's actually been a really long journey of like 7 years of figuring that out, because I started with doing coaching, and I thought, yeah, I want to be a coach. I want to help people kind of achieve what they want to achieve and, you know, get there. And then I quickly realized, like, a lot of the guys who come to me with these ideas are actually just, they're lost, they don't know who they are, or the goals and ambitions that they have are founded in their own insecurities. So I was like, we have to go beyond coaching and this kind of future thinking in order to really get people to what actually is something more soulful that I think we're really yearning for. That we don't necessarily want the big things. We want what we think and imagine that will make us feel about ourselves, which is kind of a sense of, you know, finally I can be happy with myself, which, you know, we all know is a trap. And then I said, okay, well then I want to go down the therapeutic route and, you know, go deep and do the inner work. And I went there, and, you know, it was like inner child stuff, and I found myself just kind of embroiled by this more like spiritual therapeutic world, which was amazing. And it looked great because, you know, if somebody is crying in my sessions or in the workshops I did, then like, yes, we've done it. But I found quickly then that like, we just kind of stayed in this like swamp of healing of like, yeah, it's good and it's okay. And, you know, I love myself, and just mourn and grieve the childhood I never had, or whatever it was, or the experiences that I went through. So I felt like, well, this isn't it either. This is like, it's not just about perpetual healing. And then it was like, okay, I need to combine the two to find out what really makes sense to me. And after reading and exploring things like internal family systems, the spiritual work, and a lot of the men's work stuff, it really was apparent it's about something called self or essence or your soul, or something that we can feel and sense in our body that feels like us, that feels authentic, and has this kind of universal characteristic of compassion, of openness, of groundedness, of clarity. And it was through more reading, more studying, that I found like, okay, I think this is it, where it's really about healing the boy in us and those parts in us that we're still holding on to, the stories, the trapped emotions in our body, but in order to be of service ultimately. And again, this is something that I think I've learned in maybe like the last year, that it always ends up there of like, when we feel good in ourselves and when our cup is full, we want to be of service. And I think men especially, we want to show up in the world where we want to contribute to other people. We want to feel strong, and we want to feel abundant, that we can give. So now my focus is really about connecting guys to themselves through healing and through energetic practices of embodiment, so that they can be in the world in a way that feels really powerful for themselves, for their families, for their partners, for their friends, and for their broader communities at large.
Love that. So beautiful. So I really resonate with that part of like just wanting to serve, you know. I think in our society, especially in the last like maybe 10 years, we've all been told that we need to focus on finding our purpose, and it has to be this one big thing that we're doing, and that's it. That's supposed to give us all our, you know, gratification and all our joy and all our, you know, just filling us up.
Yeah.
But maybe it's really a lot more about the smaller things. It's about like, you know, being able to take care of those around you, your family, your loved ones, your friends, people you meet on the street. Just having this sense of, I want to contribute to the world around me to the best of my abilities, coming from a place of love, not doing it to seek confirmation for my wounds.
Yes.
Which a lot of us have been doing for a long time before it became an awareness, you know, of where what's happening there. But really to selflessly give to others.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love that. And I think purpose has become the new westernized, like commercialized thing, right? Of like, you know, once I find my purpose, then I'm going to be okay. Then I'm good. You know, and purpose, I think when we speak about it a lot, when we hear about it, it's like this big shiny thing that we can put on the wall, you know, and it's like, we can talk about it on a podcast and then like, I'm on this mission. Great. And there's something to that for sure. And it also creates this trap of like, if I don't have my purpose, I can't be happy.
Yeah.
And, you know, and also, like you said, the idea that our purpose isn't in giving our grandma a cup of water when she's thirsty, or, you know, just like taking care of our partner when she's not feeling in the best mood, or even the purpose being creating joy, you know, hosting a dinner or things that look kind of mundane or simple. So yeah, I love that. Really love that.
I don't know whose quote this was, but I remember it really vividly. Like, your purpose is not what you do, but it is what happens in others when you do what you do.
Yes.
And I love that, and because it really shines a light on the importance of connection.
Yes.
Like, if we're in this shiny castle, we found our purpose, and this is the thing, and I'm doing all this, but you're not connected to anyone else. Does it really matter?
Right.
Yeah.
And a big thing for me in my process and learning, like I remember probably about like 2.5 years ago, I was living in the co-living that I used to run. And I was like sat in my apartment and I was on my laptop trying to, you know, be an entrepreneur, do the coaching and live my purpose. But ultimately I was just alone and by myself on a laptop. And I remember trying to set myself goals and get motivated. So I was like, okay, you know, what do I want to achieve? What do I want to attain in my life? And I felt this like nausea in my gut and this hollowness of like, is this what it's really about? Is it about me earning more money, like an extra few thousand? Is it really about like my own comforts and conveniences? And I just felt like this isn't it. This is not it. And now I ask myself, what does life want of me? So it's not what's my purpose and my thing and more mine. And like, so I have the purpose, so I feel good in myself. Because then you're just, you know, looking at your own navel and it's still very inward focused. But I think that the masculine in us wants to feel something that's bigger than us, that draws us away from our couch, that draws us out of the thing that we would kind of rather do from the place of like, you know, our boy or the laziness in us. And we want to feel like, yeah, I would, you know, sacrifice sleep. I would sacrifice kind of the comforts of a nice routine or a warm bed because I'm living into something that really fucking matters. And so, yeah, for people listening to this, like if one thing that's been a game changer for me and my purpose is like, it's not about me. Your purpose is not about you. It's about what life is asking of you in this moment. And it could look grand. And it could just look like looking after my sick mother, you know, while she's on her deathbed. And that is just what life is saying. Now you're needed here. And so I think that can also bring a lot of relief as well in like, maybe I don't have to try and, you know, be the big dick and earn more money and do, you know, attain more, but just like, this is where I'm needed.
Yeah, and you also don't have to figure it out all by yourself.
Yes.
Life is actually helping you and carrying you.
Yes.
And for people that are still like really like head focused and not have that capacity yet to really tune into their hearts and really feel into life, what it's calling, what's asking of them. But do you have any like, you know, what's a good tips or like ideas that you use for yourself to get there?
Yeah. Anything that brings us into the body. So one of the things that I love doing with the guys I work with is doing some breath work and getting to look in a different place. Like you said, you know, we're often here trying to figure out things and how should I do this or that, or whether it's our relationship or its purpose or our future business. And it's about asking something else in us. So you can ask your mind and your mind will give you answers, typically things that you know from before and that are also sometimes based in fear. But then to breathe in the body and then to let go of having to know and kind of this you figuring out and then asking, as you said, like doing it alone, asking something else to give you the answer and then waiting and listening. And it can be a matter of seconds or it can be a process of weeks or years even of coming into the body and just saying, okay, you know, what is it for me? What's the answer here? And you can ask your heart and you can see what comes back. You can ask your gut and see what comes back. The cool thing is you can get wisdom anywhere. Like if we just sat and we did some breathing, and we come into our body and then we just stay with this plant and we say, okay, give me the wisdom I need to hear right now. And I guarantee both of us would come up with exactly what we need to hear right now, which would bring us a little bit closer to ourselves. And okay.
Yeah, 100%. I had it 2 days ago when I went to the forest here in Sintra, like a couple of hours. And I just really felt like this sense of connection and this sense of like, I don't need to like figure anything out. Like life is always supporting, life is always here. And like so many beautiful insights just by really surrendering to what is, to nature. And I did last year, I did a big trip we did a 5-day trip with 17 people in Norway, just completely off grid. And there was also I think it was like 20 hours or something, like a vision quest, which in native cultures, this can be up to like 10 days, I think. But like this was a short version. But they taught us a bit about like where did this concept came from, this initiation. And there was also like this, like the answer, the question you can ask is like, okay, nature or great spirit, here I am presenting myself. I'm just like here, I'm stripping bare and just waiting for you to answer me, to help me, to guide me. I think there's something really beautiful in that, because I think a lot of us, especially in our modern Western culture, where it's very mind focused, it's very individualistic, and a lot of our activities and our actions are actually based in fear. This idea of lack. I need to do this because if I don't do that, I won't have enough money, or that won't happen. Or like, what if we can relax more? If we can really let go and just feel into, okay, if I don't do anything right now for the next, like I decide for the next couple of hours, I'm not actively doing anything, and I'm just surrendering to life and what are the messages that are coming through, and what is really my heart, or great spirit or God or whatever you want to call it. But like there's this deeper sense of this is what's supposed to happen, and you can really feel it in your whole body. It's a very different thing than your mind racing, like, oh, what are all the things I'm supposed to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think the sadness that I've seen all of us feel. I don't know one guy I've worked with who hasn't felt this in some level of that disconnect from the spirit of the world, like you said. Like it's rare that we'd ask the world or life or big spirit, say, right now I'm stuck, man. I'm here and here's my heart. And my offering to you is my grief. My offering to you is my feeling of lostness. What do I do? How can you help me? And have the humility, or just even the understanding that that's possible and that you will receive something back. And so I think there's a real longing in society and in men and in our soul to come back to something that feels I guess just more non-rational and yeah, more inspirited and more soulful. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but my parents never said, ask big spirit, you know. They would say, you know, read a career book or, you know, something like this.
Yeah. No, they haven't. But although they did, they were very supportive for me and my sister both to follow our joy, to follow our heart. Yeah. So it wasn't like, we were like by the measurement systems of school, we were fairly smart. And we're like, okay, you can go to university and you can do that. And my sister gave it a try and really quickly found out that that's not the way for her. And she was just really, you know, loved to work with horses. And she just decided, I'm going to do that. And she's still doing it with a lot of joy and love. And for me, I did finish like a bachelor's degree, but I really noticed like already like after 1.5 2 years, like this is not it. This is way too rigid, way too head focused. I'm just regurgitating stuff that someone else made up like 50, 60, 70 years ago. But I'm not being creative. I'm not even allowed to have my own opinion. I'm only allowed to like take these two insights or these two like perspectives and compare them. But I'm not allowed to create something new. And that's just when I really realized like that's not it for me. Like I really just want to feel there's aliveness flowing through me and this energy and this creativity. And that's also one of the things I really love about like, you know, what you're doing. And like, we're now talking a bit more about like the deeper sense, but there's also this, which might be a bit more serious in a sense, but there's also a lot of this aliveness. Like you have this really grounded, big presence, I would say almost of a mountain, but at the same time, you're like, you know, like a twig in the breeze. You're like, you know, you're moving all around and you have like this really playful energy, and it's kind of contagious. So I'm just really curious, like, is that something that's always been with you, or is this something you've like allowed to rise up more and more?
I've been very lucky. Like you, had loving parents who encouraged me to follow my heart. And one thing, especially about my mother, is that she's very playful. And she was deeply connected or committed to stimulating us beyond screen. So she was into like arts and crafts, so we'd always be doing arts and crafts, or we'd be finding games to play. I remember when we'd go on walks through the forest, my dad's very interested in natural like flora and fauna. So he would stop and be like, okay, what's that bird over there? And then we'd look and be interested, and then we'd try and guess the name of the bird and get it wrong or right. But we were always being stimulated and tuning into that playfulness. So it's something that I've just grown up in. And so for me, yeah, thankfully just comes very naturally, because I just find myself really enjoying life and then seeing ways in which we can play and be silly or create experiences. And so I think it's just been encouraged to feel joy and to experience life in a curious way. And I really, it goes back to what you said about not being invited to tune into your own opinion or your own thoughts. But like, I think all of us, want that curiousness of life again, and to feel that awe. I think we've lost the awe in being adults, right?
Yeah. It reminds me also that what you just told about your parents, your dad. Like my grandpa, we used to live next to my grandparents, and it was a blessing as a kid, obviously. And my granddad had this very like childlike, open awe for nature and for life. Like he would really be able to like look at a bird and just be like, isn't that wondrous? Isn't that amazing? And just be there like looking at it for like 10 minutes or something. And just this, I think a lot of people are really, it's in them. It's not lost to them, but it's lost to the moment. Like we're all just more like focused on getting stuff done instead of like just opening up. And what I really feel like just slowing down more has given me so much more a sense of life and of joy. And I also remember the first times that I really started to, with spirituality and meditation and stuff, like about 4 years ago. Everyone was saying, the keys to slow down. And I was like, oh, shut up. Like, I wanted to get this stuff done, and like, I don't have time to slow down. Yeah. And now it's so funny. Like, I really see that it's like throughout the years, it's really changed my perspective on that. Like, just it's it is about slowing down. And it's actually, you're not getting less, you're getting more.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like there's all these like real truths in life or paradoxes. I feel like they're also, when we talk about like fear, when we're like shameful of certain things, we're not sharing something because we're afraid of what someone else might say or do. We're afraid that we're going to lose the connection if we're going to speak our fears, if we're going to say something that, you know, we're shameful of, or like something like that. And actually, it's the other way around. If we share the deepest parts of our heart, if we show vulnerability, then actually we create deeper connection.
Yeah, it's massive. And I mean, we spoke about this on Friday, right? Of like our partners being particularly good at inviting that authenticity from us, the parts of us that we've felt ashamed or embarrassed to reveal, or felt, whatever, in whatever way, like weird or, you know, not man enough. And it has a very profound effect, right? When someone says, like, I want to know who you are, and not if the presented image or idea of who you think I want you to be. Yeah.
Just drop the masks.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's really been a wonderful journey with like that for myself with my girlfriend, where I really noticed like she's just constantly inviting me to bring more of myself. And not in a sense of pressuring, or like, it's just by being her. There's just this energy. There's just this, it's just this something that's disarming, that's really pure and open. And I just feel like, it's actually okay to share that I'm really afraid right now, or that I'm ashamed of, you know, who I used to be or what I've done, or even some feelings I have now, or like just bringing that in. And I'd love to hear from you and explore with you like the things that, you know, the women in our lives have taught us about life, like, because I know there's a lot there.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, BA for me has done that immensely. I remember, I think I told you probably before, but I remember sitting watching the night sky with her in my apartment, and we were in silence, and then she said to me, "Can I say something?" And I said, yeah. She said, "I have a fear." I was like, "Okay." She said, "I'm afraid that you're not going to tell me everything, and that you're going to then distance yourself from me." And I let that land, and I was like, "I do that. That's exactly what I do." Yeah, and I see it in my parents, and the conversations that aren't being had, and it was just like, okay, it was that. She didn't tell me to do anything, like you said. She didn't say, "You're not being honest with me." She said, I feel afraid. She opened herself up and said, "Look, this is what's in me." And then in that moment, it was an invitation for me to check in with, okay, what haven't I said? And it's this like horrible, like nausea feeling of like, this is the difficult conversation, right? The things that aren't being said and the shame that comes with it. And to try and remember, I think at that time, one of the things that I felt was like, I needed more, I wanted more silence. I wanted more space. I wanted things to feel slower. I wanted to feel more kind of intimate and sensual, not necessarily physically, but also just in the kind of way we were together. And I find that there's a lot that can be said without words that is missed when we are talking with words. And now as I'm talking about it, I realized that I felt shame about that, because it was like I wasn't manly enough to handle it and to be with her and to say like, can we not talk so much? It felt like me doing that and be like, I feel overwhelmed. And so I was like, well, I can't say that. I can't say like, I don't like it when you talk so much. And that was like the shame of like, who am I? Like, how can, who am I as a man if I can't just like be with that, and like, I'm oversensitive, or I'm asking for too much. And
but it's also about how you frame it, right? So like, would you just like, if you go into that voice, if you like in that energy, if you like sort of like blaming almost someone for doing something that they're naturally doing.
Yeah.
Instead of expressing what you would really love to feel.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing.
Definitely. That's it. And when like, that's the voice inside of me that feels ashamed, right? It's like, oh, you can't be a pussy, and and I, like, come on, man, like, don't ask her to change in any way. But actually, what was beautiful was that when the request came, I said, oh, look, actually, I would love for us to be able to be intimate in silence. I'd love for us to be able to have conversations without words. Then actually invited her to see parts of her that she was afraid of in those moments of awkward silences, or of finding deeper parts of herself, or allowing the thoughts and feelings that come up in those spaces. So then it brought just so much more richness for both of us in the end. But yeah, it really, for me, has happened in what could seem like quite banal things, like, hey, I would love to be in more silence, which is simple, but it definitely brought up so much. But then she appreciated that, and we had a conversation about it, and it then created more depth in our relationship, more trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There's one instance of like really radical honesty that I want to share, and I've got Via's permission to explore this, to share it. But it was to kind of illustrate the level of radical authenticity that Bia brings to the relationship in a way that I've never experienced. So we went to a friend's brunch on the Saturday. Beautiful time. She was getting to know my friends at this point, so we're kind of still new in the relationship. And then there's this one guy who comes into the brunch. He comes late, and he's just been surfing with his buddy. And like, he comes in, he's got this like beautiful, charismatic energy, and he's high-fiving people as he comes in. And he's a good buddy of mine. And then B.S. is chatting with him, and they're just having a great vibe and laughing and joking around. And then when we come back from the brunch, we're driving home, she's like, wow, like that guy's got like such an amazing energy. Like, he's just so like radiant. And I was like, yeah, like cool dude. And then I was like, oh, it's funny because there was a thing with my ex and him, and it kind of was a little bit like where she tried to use him as a way to get back at me after we broke up. And then Bia was like, kind of felt like, oh, okay.
Oh, you shared that with her.
I shared that with her, yeah. And then I noticed Bia having some reaction, but I was like, okay. I kind of didn't mention the thing. And then the next day, we had just finished making love, and there's this kind of like moment of stillness, and we're just like holding each other, and she says, can I ask you something? I was like, yeah. And she was like, I just feel I have to ask you this because I can feel scared to ask you, and that's the cue to ask. So this is the switch of radical authenticity, is when I feel afraid, that's my cue to share. Wow. And she said, do you ever think about anyone else when we make love? I was like, okay. I was like, like, I don't think I have with you, although it's possible, but I don't think I have. But in previous relationships, I definitely have, in times where we haven't been that connected, or when, I've not been turned on. So then I go to a mental image so that I can simulate myself for something like this.
Yeah.
What about you? She was like, she was like, I just have to like be honest, like the image of your friend came to my mind when you were going down on me. And I was like, wow, okay. So there's two things that happened in that moment. One was this surprisingly big sense of joy, because in that moment I understood I can trust you. Like, I can really trust you because I know where you're at. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. I can be with that. So there was this like, wow, like I've never experienced such an openness and a willingness to say the scary things, to say like, this is me, this is who I am, this is where I'm at. So it was like, okay, I love that you shared it. And then obviously the second thing that came up was like, fuck. I'm like, right, like ego, like, okay, what does this mean? And, the whole like myriad of thoughts that came up about, what does this mean about a relationship? What does this mean about who I am? And again, my sufficiency of a man, of being able to be enough for her not to have to think or worry or, be attracted to anybody else ever. And it was just then, again, a fantastic opportunity to take a look at ourselves and understand, okay, where do we go from here? And so it was challenging, man. You know, like I went through these kind of waves of, okay, there's nothing personal, and she's just has an attraction, and that's totally allowed, to like, I have to break up with this woman because, you know, I feel like, yeah, how can I be in a relationship when I feel like she might go off or I'm not enough? And it was about like 2 days of us talking and figuring things out. And then I came back from work and she said, you know, I want to sit down with you and talk about it again. So I thought about it, and she's like, I allowed myself to feel what I felt without shame and asked myself, do I really want to explore that attraction? She said in the moment that she was allowing herself to explore it, the desire went away. I was like, okay. And I heard that, and a part of me was like, is that her just trying to give me what I want? Or is that real? And I said, okay, well, let's keep the door open and see if the attraction is there. And after that day, I checked in with her again. She's like, I haven't even thought about him. And it was just this idea of like the forbidden fruit. And that was the kind of image of the guy that she imagined before. So it was amazing because now I know where she's at. I know that she'll tell me these things. I know that there's no secrets in our relationship. So it did something very powerful for us. And for myself to look at myself and, you know, be invited to do the healing and the work to be okay with myself, even if my partner has an attraction for somebody else.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have not necessarily super similar, but similar in depth. Like, and I don't necessarily have permission, so I won't share it. But there are these moments exactly when I really felt as well, like, if you're willing to be this open, I know that, like, you know, I'm all in.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can like stop me from committing.
Yeah.
If we keep being honest. And also one thing I really love about, I don't believe that we can control, like we chose the feelings, but we do choose how to like, do we express them or not? Do we like talk about it? Do we, you know, what are we doing? Like, so you can't necessarily control that you have like certain feelings for someone, but you can control, am I bringing it into the relationship? Am I being honest to myself? Am I being honest to my partner? Am I acting out fantasies, or is it just in my head, or do I like, you know, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot there, like there where you can really make the decision yourself into how do I want to show up in a relationship. That's the biggest change, I think. And I also think that, well, for myself, like in the past, there's definitely been moments where I felt ashamed of the feelings I had.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ridiculous, but it's also natural, I guess, if you're being taught that it's not okay to be you, or if like a version of that feeling at some point has been like, you know, someone had really had a negative reaction towards you because of it, and you've really been taught to like push it down. And I think the more we push down, the less we are actually able to be ourselves. And that is actually something that really stops us from having a genuine connection.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And someone described it to me once as, you know, you have like an inflatable ball in a pool and you push it down, right? First thing is it takes a lot of effort to push it down. And the further you push it down, the more pressure builds and the more it wants to come up. And then if you do get tired or slip, the ball is going to, it comes out big time. And so the very like shame around the stuff and the oppression, then it guarantees it's going to come out somehow or some way, either through disease, through reactiveness, through like subversion, manipulation, or whatever. And I think really the work that I do as well is like unshaming ourselves so that we can understand whatever attractions, feelings, emotions, energies are there, to be able to harness the power of them consciously, rather than, you know, label sexual attraction as bad or dangerous, or like anger as bad or dangerous.
Yeah.
It all has its place. And so can we be skillful in understanding it so that our life can then look more alive, more authentic, more deeply connected? Yeah. And what are the ways in which you've experienced like a greater sense of yourself and authenticity through your relationship? Like what has that been for you specifically?
I'm a sponge to so much information, and I really enjoy, reading all kinds of books and watching documentaries and listening to podcasts, and then also talking about it. And like, there's not a lot of people I can actually, it's become more now, but like a couple of years ago when Lauren and I met, there wasn't a lot of people where I could share that with. And she was open to that. And that also made me realize like, oh, that part of me is actually allowed to be here. But one of the main things also is the goofiness, like she's got this lightness and this, like, she's always making funny faces and jokes and like, all these puns and just constantly goofing around and like picking up the phone, and then she's got her hair in a knot and she's just picking up the phone with the knot like that when we're video calling and stuff like that, where it's just like, she just had me in tears of laughing so many times. And that's something that I had pushed away for a really long time. Yeah. Just been too serious and building my life in terms of this masculine energy, but not letting the feminine energy flow as well, like the fun and the playfulness. It was just like this. I was, for so long, I was just in my head and it was like working, building. But for what? Like, I wasn't actually present in the moment, enjoying and allowing myself to just, be goofy or like look like a hobo or like whatever, and just really be that part of me as well. And also what I've really learned in the relationship is like the energy. So like she just really embodies this feminine energy, whether she is actively doing something or not, when she knows it or not. And it's really allowing me to be more, pushing me to be more grounded. So like sometimes when we're about to leave for like, dinner with friends or something, and, as women do, she might take a bit more time than I do, a bit more time than she thinks she needs. So like, we're actually supposed to go and she's like still in the bathroom doing all kinds of stuff and she's running around the house. And I used to be agitated in those kind of situations. But now it's really just an invitation to be like, okay, can I be grounded? Can I maybe let her know we're really supposed to go, but in a playful way, that I'm still like letting her know that I'm seeing her and I'm not telling her that she's not okay what she's doing, but maybe she's just lost track of time. So really, just be there. And also when she's like, when there's something heavy's come up and she's really sad, to not try to fix it, but to just hold her and just be with her. Just be like, okay, I'm here for you. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You don't need to do anything. I don't need to understand. I don't need to help you right now. We don't need to fix anything. It's just okay. Just be here. And that is something that I felt has had such a profound impact on her. So healing for her, because she's never had that. And that's just one of the, also for me, because when I first read about this kind of, let's say, embodying this type of masculine energy and like the way of the superior man and those kind of books, it felt like something that was so far out. I was like, oh, that sounds really good, but I don't know how to do that. And in a previous relationship, my ex was like a really good mirror, but in a kind of an unforgiving way. And I just couldn't handle it at the time. I was just too much like figuring out myself and figuring out how this energy stuff works and all that. And now it's changed so much where I'm like, Lauren is also a mirror, but in a softer way. And I've grown a lot. And those two things really help us to just be in balance and be open and be honest, and also acknowledge when the other is doing something that's hurting us or triggering us, but not saying, you doing that, you're not supposed to do that because it hurts me. But like, hey, when this happens, I notice that I'm actually being hurt, and I just want to share that. And that's it. That's enough. Yeah. And maybe you can explore, and you want to explore together, like, where did that come from? And why is that pain there? And like feeling into it together. And maybe you don't need to. Maybe just bringing it up is enough, and that just dissipates the energy. And doing that more and more, like doing that, inviting yourself and each other to do that all the time can be enough to just, take the weight of your own and each other's shoulders. So yeah, that's
good shit, man.
Those things, I think, mainly.
Yeah.
There's one thing I wrote down that you shared, which I really like. Like, there might be only 4 things we need to do in life: the simple things, the hard things, the scary things, and the fun things. And it really resonated because it's hard and scary as well. Like, like Bea said, like, I feel like I'm afraid, that's why I'm doing it right now. But also not lose track of those other things. And I really see that in you. You're aware of those 4 parts, of those 4 things. And I think I don't even know. I don't think we need to explain how to get there, but like, it's good to make, like, if you're listening to this, make a note, like, write the shit down, because like, it's a really good reminder, I think. And the simple things as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the gold and there's wisdom. And yeah, that's it. It's just, can be as simple to get clarity as writing, okay, what are the things within those 4 categories, and doing them. And it's really like comes to that, to like knowing where to look, right? Like, I think as men, often we're looking at our head for the answers or what to do. But often I find it's always in the body. That's where life is lived. It's where we feel. It's where our intuition is, and it's where we find the answers to these questions. And okay, what do I do? Where do I go? How to respond? And going back to what you shared, I think just one of my biggest lessons in this like journey of 7 years has been tell the truth. It's that. Obviously, you need to be able to notice the truth in your body of like a contraction, of an expansion, of a question, of a trigger. But it can be as simple as, oh, when you said that, this happened to me. Like, for example, to display it, like when you said, now, you said, like that's what women are like, when you spoke about your partner. And I can feel a contraction in me because I'm like that. Yeah, because I was late. I was an hour and 20 minutes late to Tice's birthday on Friday, right? So I am like that. I have this kind of ADHD, kind of scattered energy, and like there's no shortage of love, but I can be sometimes flaky, and so like there's this like part of my journey as well as being. My dad is very like kind of typical masculine, on time. It's very simple to him, black and white. My mum is very scattered. So along my journey in my childhood, I was hearing my dad speak about women being like this and men being like this, and feeling like I'm like my mum. So I'm like women, and then being like, oh yeah, wanting to stay connected with him and not receive the same judgment, criticism. So I then put on this front of like, yeah, us men, like we're always on time, aren't we? And then being like, fuck, I'm like, rarely. It's so hard for me. It feels like somehow, like, although it's so simple, to someone like you, if I'd be like, how do I be on time? You'd just be like, well, just think about what you've got to do and then make sure you've got enough time to do it. It's like, it's as simple as that. And yet the energy in me, for whatever reason, is that of like getting too immersed in what I'm doing now, or getting caught up in it, and then feeling like, oh fuck, I haven't got time to do the things I need to do. So yeah, just to live it, what we're talking about now. Yeah. Give an example
of that. And yeah, it's funny because all these qualities, like we can label them like masculine or feminine, but it doesn't obviously mean that if it's masculine that it's only natural for men. Like everyone has those energies and those qualities, just in bigger or smaller quantities. Yeah. I'm just curious, like, what are things that you've done, and like lessons from the past, like 7 years. What are for you the most important things to come back to peace in a world that's trying to disturb it, in like this busy world that we have? What are things that you're doing to stay grounded and connect to yourself time and time again?
Yeah, I love that question. I guess like what we've said already before, which is like the first one, slow down. It's like what I say to all the guys I work with is step 1, slow down. And we can all do that with just a breath. It's that feeling like, okay, yeah. And as soon as you do it, you're like, oh, okay, right? And it just creates a sense of like really the effect of slowing time down. So slow down, creating space, and that just really means like having space, especially in the morning before I respond to the world, in the evening before I go to bed, where I don't have to react to something. So it's just time where my thoughts are processing themselves and my mind's doing its thing, and that then brings new insights, and I put things together and I remember things. So for me, space, whatever that looks like, it just means that not time responding. Also, one thing that I noticed for myself that I think we don't really speak about a lot is just like having fun, like being with friends. That sometimes I feel like, wow, you know, I'm lost and what am I doing in my work? And I find myself feeling so lethargic. And then I would go and have some beers with the guys and come back and be like, life's so good, man. You know, I love these dudes. And I just felt like myself again. So I noticed for myself, especially, I find myself in groups. I find myself and remember who I am when I'm in social settings. For me, it's something that's so nourishing and important. So for me, having nourishing friendships, playing, having fun, like, okay, yeah, here I am again. And then one of the biggest things for me as well in this journey is being able to have my emotional faculties online, which means especially with my anger, being able to use anger to ground and to then burn away all the non-essential. Because with the mind, we'll start talking, and I've got this, and I've got to respond to that person. And it often feels like for me, I've got so many things to worry about and do. And when I come into my anger, and it's kind of this like, imagine like putting a staff in the ground like Gandalf and like this, it's like big reaction where it blows everything away. And it's like, okay, like what is really essential? What really matters? And it grounds me in myself. It grounds me in my clarity of the things that I really need to take care of in this moment of my life and in myself. And it's like my fierce love. So for me, anger has been one of the really important gateways to say, no, this is what matters. This stuff I can leave, or, you know, I need to cancel these social events or whatever it is. So big one is coming back to anger, getting clarity on that. And then I could say the cliches like going into nature and surfing and
of course. But I love that, like the anger, because what it you're not like smashing up a room. No. You're using that anger to really make you, to really feel the aliveness in you and the energy in you, and using it to anchor in what's important.
Yes. Yeah. I love that analogy as well. As you said that, what came to my mind is like unconscious anger would be just smashing the room up, right? Just it's anger for me that I'm using at the world. And then conscious anger would be like tidying everything, you know, like that. Like I've had enough of this shit in this room. And so like these clothes I don't use and this mug that's been there and is now moldy, like it's getting, you know, I'm doing it. It's generative, it's creative, and it makes stuff happen. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful like power of like, okay, the room is now tidy. Like everything is in order again, that king energy of, right, like here, this is what it should be. And this is how I should be. Yeah.
I also want to dive into, because I listen to some other podcasts. Obviously we know each other, but also just, you know, see how others have picked your brains, and to dive into this part of like learning everything you're supposed to have learned in school, which is, you know, a lot of that emotional intelligence. And I'd really love for you to elaborate on that, and because I think it's such an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest reasons why I got into this was just all the conversations that weren't being had. And you know, like, why are we not talking about how to have great relationships? Why are we not talking about what it means to live from soul or from authenticity? So I remember just feeling so stuck on all the most important things in life, right? Like, I think if I think about the most important topics, it would be like, what do I want? What's authentic? How to relate, how to be honest, how to reveal over conceal. Money, you know, how to be good with money, how to understand money, how to relate to money. And then, how to know what my purpose is, you know, how to know what I'm really here for and what I'm here to do. And so I remember just at various stages being like, fuck, why is no one talking about this? Like, why did I not get taught this? Why am I getting taught shit like Pythagoras theorem when I don't know how to relate to someone, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the frustration. And that's when I set about, okay, trying to understand it for myself, and then being like, okay, I'm clearly not the only one who's also feeling this lack. And so that's why I do what I do, which is really, like, I think 3 things, which is your relationship with yourself, how to map your own emotions, your feelings, to understand what's really going on in your body. It's like a pilot's cockpit, you know, you have the lights and the meters and that. If you go in there for the first time, you're going to be overwhelmed, and this red light's flashing. I don't even know what the red light means. You're smashing the red light out or covering it up, right? We're repressing, we're like pushing it away, but it's trying to tell you something. So for me, it's like my job is to say, okay, the red light means this. And when that happens, it means that you need to raise this up, because then it does this, and then okay, great. The red light's off now. Cool. Or this yellow light. And so to read the whole map of the body so that you can fly well, you know, you can navigate life in a really authentic and strong way, clean way. Second thing is then mapping relationships with others. What's being said behind the words, what's not being said, how to then really speak to what it is that they're feeling, so that they feel seen and heard, and completing communication, as you know with Lauren. And then the third thing is then, about finding your purpose, and about being able to then have the discipline, the motivation, the capacity to stay with what's important when things get tough. So those are the 3 things that now, okay, I'm committed to educating people on, and holding spaces for people to understand, so that they can feel like, life doesn't have to be so difficult, relationships, or with myself, others, and the world at large.
Staying with things when life gets tough. How important is physical exercise? How important has that been for you to teach your mind to stick with it? Yeah,
it's really everything. I think there's an aspect of doing the difficult things. I'm lucky in that I really enjoy exercise. So I really love to move my body. And for me, I think one of the big things is that it's given me an outlet to expel kind of stagnant energy, or when I can feel sticky, but it's also just gives energy. Energy creates energy. So to feel like, this morning I went to the gym, and now I can feel like, great, I can really get on with my day and come into it with the sense of strength and aliveness. So to do something, like exercise, whatever we do in life is symbolic. So, as it symbolizes strength, as it symbolizes consistency, self-love, I think that then bleeds into the rest of what we do too.
Yeah. I notice that so much, like when I'm mornings when I'm not exercising, my day feels like half as good. I'm not even talking about productivity. It's just like presence and energy in the body and all these things. Like it's so important. And it's so important. Also, ice baths is also a great thing in the winter. And I suppose maybe here it's a bit harder to do. But to open the curtains and see that thing a little bit of, like in the winter with a layer of ice on it. And just, I've been telling myself, like, if I really don't feel like it, that's when I'm going. Because that's when you're training, the mental toughness.
Yeah. And
actually transforming it's not even fear perhaps in this case, but like this, this sense of comfort. It's better to be comfortable, to stick with what I know, and to not like push myself, and then to actually do it. And really, really not look forward to it, but still do it, and sit in that cold, sit in that pain, and then feel the release after 2 or 3 minutes, coming out feeling like a king.
Yes.
That's a massive mindset shift.
Yes.
And doing that again and again has really helped me to not walk away anymore when things get hard, or when I'm afraid, or like just go.
Yeah. I love that. And the Stoics call it self-denial. So it's practicing, in an ice bath, you're denying yourself of warmth, right? And they say, go out without a jacket, or sleep on the floor once a month without a bed, because one, you really then get grateful for when you have warmth and you have a bed, and and you don't just think, I'm entitled to it. And 2, when the time comes that things aren't comfortable, which life happens, you're not now in a state of fragility where you're thinking, oh no, what do I do? And because you've practiced and you're there. Okay, so I'm without the comforts that I'm usually with. That's okay. And I practice every day or every week the same thing. So it's not a great, you don't get thrown off so much. I think that speaks to that masculine staying with presence as well.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. Yeah. Is there anything you want to share that we haven't touched on where you feel like that's really important or an important lesson?
I think just recapping for me is like, there's really like two elements of all of this. Like, one is self-compassion, self-love, and unshaming, these parts of us that we felt like we had to hide or we had to be a certain way in order to be lovable and acceptable. And it's this sense of rescuing those little boys that learned, in the playground, I can't be like this, I can't cry, or with my parents, I have to get good grades and perform, whatever it is, but bringing those little guys home and saying, dude, I got you and I'm here for you. In the same way that you do with your partner, do it with ourselves. I'm here for you, I got you. So when fear comes up, I know you're scared and I'm here and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
That's a beautiful, it's the inner child, it's the younger part of yourself. I think a lot of us, we really, what I used to do a lot before this, all came into my awareness was completely identifying with the feeling. Just, I am afraid and that's all I am right now. Instead of, there's this part of me that's actually afraid, or like fear comes up. Or even when we're talking about feeling, we want to label everything, but maybe if there's constriction in your throat just before you're supposed to, have a speech or something, you can say, I'm nervous, but really it's just constriction. It's just a feeling in your body. It's not necessarily anything else. Just bringing awareness to the feeling in your body and bringing breath and relaxedness and energy there can already be enough. We don't always have to label things.
Yeah, totally. I love that. And it's really, how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to others. I had it described perfectly as speaking for the feeling, not from the feeling.
Yeah.
And to do that in relationships as well, right? Like, you made me angry, I'm fucking angry. Or
I'm really angry right now.
Yeah. And then you saying, okay, I'm not saying there's a rage in me right now. It's very different. And then what happens, I find, is like, you put it in the center, and then me and you now we can talk about this thing that's here, rather than you're now in a conversation with rage. Okay, rage is here. What's rage saying? Rage is saying this, that, and the other. I didn't like what you did. And then it either is like a reflection for you, or it's like, actually, this is bringing up an old story, and I can remember this time when blah, blah, blah. So this is a massive part of being then able to take responsibility, because if you are fear, you can't take responsibility for it because you are it. But if you notice fear, and okay, there is fear here, there's also a whole other spectrum of experience, then I can be with fear, I can then have a conversation with it and see what it wants. Yeah.
And just taking responsibility for everything is, I think, a really big thing, especially for men. But not saying that women don't have to take responsibility for anything, but I've really noticed my life change as soon as I really chose to take responsibility of feelings, of things that I've done, on the impact that my, expressions have had on others. And even, let's say someone has a trauma on a certain topic, and you, without knowing, you don't know about that, and you share something or address something, and it really hits them. It's not necessarily your fault, and it's not it is in that sense their responsibility. And at the same time, there's this part of okay, can I just reflect and look back at myself? Was this the most loving way I could have expressed this? Was this the most caring and most compassionate way that conversation was being had? Or was I being a little bit neglective, or a little bit egotistical, and just really trying to embody love and compassion more and more?
Yes. And I think there's a really important point here, which is, for me, when I feel like I'm not enough or I feel afraid, I go into a good boy tendency sometimes. And that'll either create submissiveness, and responsibility will look like I fucked up, I did wrong. I should have done differently, in this kind of sense of like
placing yourself below someone even. Yeah.
And then I'm pandering to them, and then betraying myself in some way, and it's never going to work out. Or I rebel against this feeling of I fucked up, and I'm like, fuck you, because I don't want to feel not enough for the ways in which I've made you upset. And then it's really like just owning all the ways in which I'm creating the circumstances for what I say I don't want. And I remember, like, it was maybe even last week, I was in my men's group that I run. There's 15 of us in the space, and we do an integrity round. So checking in your integrity, and my integrity with my commitments and agreements I've made with myself, with the men in the group. So if there's an emotional charge, right? Is there something unsaid? And then with my broader community. So my friends, my family, colleagues. And we're going around one by one, and these guys are, taking radical responsibility and being in radical integrity with themselves. I go around, I think I'm fine, I'm in integrity this week. And as it goes around and I'm listening to where there's not an integrity, I recognize that Bia and I, on the Monday before, we had like one of our biggest blowouts, and like I'm feeling very like resentful and righteous in the way that she spoke to me, just like wasn't okay. And I was still with this desire to have a conversation with her about how it wasn't okay the way she spoke to me. So I'm hearing these guys take, this responsibility. And I realize by the time it gets to me that I'm responsible for what happened, not because I'm a bad guy, I created it, or that it's okay for her to speak to me that way, but I was reflecting on, did I give her space to really connect with what she felt behind the aggressive front, behind the reactivity? And I was thinking about what I did, and I was like, no, I was just pushing more into my point and saying, well, no. So then she was fighting back. And in NVC, they say, in nonviolent communication, they say, the first act of war is defense. And it was this, and I was like, yeah, I was defensive the whole time. So I built this pressure cooker up to the point where at the end, Bia was like, fuck you. And then I was like, so righteous about this, like, that's so, like, that's not our relation. And then like, it was beautiful because I could go home and say, look, the way that you spoke to me wasn't okay for me. And I can see how I created that. And I can see how I created the conditions where that would happen for you. And I felt resentful that I had found it. I was like, fuck, and I have to take responsibility. But it was liberating because I could finally stop my own bullshit and my own drama. I could stop creating this power dynamic between us and say, you know what, like, I get it. I get how there was a space for you from me to really drop into, actually, I feel really scared, which is what happened in the end. And we spoke about that. And as in all relationships, when we're triggered, it's actually just, I'm really scared. And my inner boy is just feeling fragile, my inner girl. So yeah, just a little example of what it might look like to take radical responsibility, and it's an ongoing process of 100%. Catching ourselves.
I just finished John Wineland's book From the Core, and he's really big on that as well. Like, just everything is your responsibility. Like, and I've like really been practicing with it more and more, and really sense like sometimes there's this part of me like, I don't really want to, like, I don't really want to think like, is this really my responsibility too? Like, it feels really heavy sometimes, or like it feels like a law. But actually, when you then go into it, it feels liberating because I actually have control. I actually having responsibility means having control.
Yeah,
and having the capacity to better not myself only, but also future this kind of situation in the future, and connect more and like make sure that people around me feel seen and heard and loved. Yeah. Instead of being in this like rigid, like, oh, it's, I'm here and it's your fault, and like all this bullshit,
Yes.
And it's all about like being the first to, open up, to be vulnerable, to take the action, like, and like really, really open the space to everything, that's like all emotions, and that everything can be there.
Yeah. And I think that the hardest thing for me has been separating responsibility from blame. Because if I feel like I fucked up and I'm the responsible, or like I've caused the suffering or the upset, then naturally I don't want to take responsibility, because it's like, well, then, I don't be the wrong one in this situation. But then it's like, the question was, okay, there's something happening for her, which is something going on for her. And then, as you said, how can I just make this more wonderful? How can I create the circumstances that I deeply want and desire? And there's control and there's power in that. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's all about like trying to embody love and just being love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing that's been amazing in this relationship with Bia is that, and my big learning is, love doesn't always look nice. Love doesn't always look, I see you and I'm with you. It can also look like, we had this this discussion the other day where we're going to Turkey in a couple of weeks, and Bia was kind of feeling like her stuff was coming up around like not being valued and appreciated in some ways, and it was about the trip. And I was feeling like, no, we're going on this amazing trip and it's so wonderful. We've got everything to be grateful for. Like we are not going to focus on the kind of like stuff that was wrong or, not right. And so in that moment, I basically laid it on her directly I was like, this is nothing about the Turkey trip. You're not taking responsibility for what's really going on, which is something inside of you that you need to look at. Otherwise, your whole life is going to be like this, and it's going to be Turkey now, and it's going to be a bunch of other things later. And it was like this sort of clarity. And it wasn't at B. It wasn't like, you're doing this, and then it was, this is what's going on, and I want to bring you to what's actually happening and back to yourself. And it was amazing because I was thinking like, have I been like, unempathetic, and she's going through some stuff. And so I felt a bit of fear around using that conscious anger. And there's this kind of pause, and she was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, whoa. I was like, cool. And then she's like, yeah, you're right. I there is stuff going on for me, and I'm not taking responsibility for it. And I don't want to ruin the excitement of the Turkey trip by bringing my stuff into it. And it was like, that's for me as well. It's conscious relating and fierce love, right? Of like, no, it's not like this, and this is what is going on, and this is your bullshit as well. And so that has been one of the most incredible things about the relationship as well, is that for the most part she's really ready to hear that, and she knows that it comes from care and love, because we've been sharing and we've been doing the difficult things and having difficult conversations, and we don't typically tend to get into drama.
Yeah,
that she can hear that from me and know that it comes from a place of wanting the best for her ultimately as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. I think that's a lovely thing to close off with. Can you please let everyone know how they can find you, what you're doing, any offerings you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Arun Thompson Coaching, it's ARUN, like a run, on Instagram, and arunthompson.com for the website. And the things that are coming up, well, the main things that I love doing and that I really invite all guys to be a part of are the men's community. So I have one in Lisbon that's every Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30, and then online on Thursdays evenings. And it's just like a really great way to be involved with it, see guys doing this, and be around guys who inspire you and invite the best out of you, so that you can have a space to talk and share and understand what's going on, and then like rise up into the calling of life and show up in a way that feels really empowered and authentic and real. And then one-to-one coaching as well, for guys who really want to go deep and they want to uncover their potential and their brilliance and come back to themselves.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Thanks
Lars,
so much for coming. And really looking forward to share this with the world. So everyone, thanks very much for listening, watching, and see you on the next one.
Hey.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Spirit Unfolding podcast. I'm so grateful that you've joined us in this episode, and I hope that you've gained valuable insights and inspiration that you can apply to your own life. Please share it with your family, friends, and on social media. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.